client who's been with us for quite some time. I've had an opportunity to grow with Alex as he's morphed probably 4 months with the one-on-one coaching platform that alteredSTATE offers. And so I just want to welcome Alex Masferrer to the testimony that we're going to be discussing today. Alex, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm glad we're doing this.
Excellent. Alex, I know that you and I've now evolved in not only our relationship and how we've applied the coaching and all the principles of alteredSTATE and how those have fed into a lot of the great things that you're doing. Talk to me a little bit about when you first came in, how you were feeling, how you came to know about alteredSTATE, and how the relationship has been over the last 4 months.
I started seeing your posts where you were, authentic, right? You were talking about your story and your struggles and your victories as well. And that resonated with me because I think for a lot of us, and I want to say, most of your clients, right? So the space that you're, and the people that you're working with in business, executives, entrepreneurs, and so on, we all struggle with something, and we all have certain addictions to things. And to me, I was very impressed that you had the courage to put that out there. And also, I think there's a lot of affinity, right? You're into working out. I'm into working out. I've read a lot, about mindset and grit and all this, and it just resonated. So I reached out to you, right? So I reached out. We had several conversations before we formally started, and so here we are 4 months later.
Excellent. When you look at, if we were to just qualify the level of maybe being stuck, right? We've talked about getting you unstuck, and the platform is built around not only getting people unstuck, but elevating them once they're unstuck to really become the best version of themselves. What level would you say, if we were to just qualify it in terms of a number? 1 to 10.
I would say probably about a 5 or a 6, and
Okay.
and I know that's right smack in the middle, and it's hard to go either one way or another. And
Yeah.
You're smiling, I know. I would quantify it in terms of 5 or 6, kind of in the middle, but it's enough where it's like, okay, I'm not moving forward in this area, and what do I do?
You're not consistent with maybe having a 7 or an 8 almost every day, right? Building a mindset where you're anchored, you're leaning in, you approach your day, you're leaning forward with a 7 or 8. Being in the middle gives a lot of chance for it going south. Yeah. And so when we look at the principles of what we're trying to teach, and to your point, we want to make sure that we're leaning towards the right, which is obviously scaling up in numbers. So yeah, I love that. When you look at the daily lessons, when you look at the worksheets attached to that, how have those impacted your life? Obviously, they're geared and they're packaged in a way that really looks at those 4 different categories that represents the brand. How have you been able to apply those lessons, the daily lessons, as well as the worksheets?
Well, one of the things that I have been doing, and sometimes what happens to me is that I'll start doing something, I kind of get distracted, and then I'll start doing something else. And when it comes to becoming the best versions of ourselves, as you say, right? So that again is fluid. I mean, we have free will, right? And we can get up in the morning and start our routines and set up our days in the best way possible. But for me, it's like a lot of it is in my mind, right? So I say to myself, okay, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna do my prayers and my meditation. I'm gonna drink my water, I'm gonna do this, what have you. But having it on paper in the way that your format provides allows for greater focus, right? So if I get up in the morning and first thing I do is I'll grab a cup of water, sit down, and I can put my thoughts on paper. I think it's a very effective thing, because not only now is it in my mind, but it transfers onto the paper. I can now visually see it, and it's kind of like this, if you will, like this success loop. I'm just going to call it.
Yeah.
Where now I'm feeding it, to myself again.
Love
and
it.
So it just makes it that much more effective, that much easier to do.
And listen, we often talk about it. And I know that in our journey together, we talked about how to set yourself up for success. And it goes with the behaviors that happen as soon as your feet hit the bed, right? How are we literally building our day, putting it on paper, and dedicating that first part of our day to ourselves, right? And I think that there's a reluctance as even executives or working professionals, entrepreneurs, to just get at it. But the at it doesn't happen at the level that it should unless we focus internally.
Correct.
And so I'm really happy that you've been able to implement and apply that. When you look at the one-on-one coaching, and it's been, I think the tone and the pulse, you're smiling, and I love that. There's very direct coaching, and I often say, hey, there's probably coddling for about 5 minutes, right? It's really like dissecting where you're at and what are the systems that we're going to build to get you out of there. Talk to me a little bit about the coaching.
Yeah. So one of the things, particularly with you and I, right? So I'm surprised that you and I never, we probably did, cross paths, before, but, one of the things that I like about working with you, Tony, is that, same culture, very similar backgrounds, similar mindset, although you've been able to conquer a lot of these things that now you're helping me conquer, right? But similar mindset, family, we put a priority on our families and our kids, our boys, right? So there's a lot of similarities there. So I have a very high level of comfort in talking to you. We've met on a couple of occasions in person, which I think is great. And I know COVID puts a damper on that, but we've been able to do it. But the coaching itself, yeah, the coddle, like you say, at the beginning, it's always, how are you doing? How was your week? How's your day? How's it going? You always bring in something that we talked about before. How was the trip with your son? To go to the lacrosse tournament or practice. How's your wife doing? And so you make it personal because you've taken the time to get to know me. We've become friends, and that's what friends do, right? And then we get into it. It's how are you doing on this thing that we talked about, right? And specifically something that we're working on together. You work at getting a sort of state of affairs in the moment, so that then you can pivot to, okay, let's get down to business, right? Yeah. And so that brings a level of comfort when we're having our conversation. What are you doing here? Why are you still doing that? And then it becomes, the coach, right? Just like in sports, and I go through this with my son, right? Where in my case, I want him to become better, and in our case, where you want me to become better.
For sure.
And it's that tough love, hey, you didn't do this thing that you said you were going to do. Why didn't you do it? And here's what you need to be doing. And, if my son or I come up with an excuse, and I don't want to make this seem like, you're, the dad scolded me, it's coaching, right? And I think there's sometimes a little bit of, confusion, if you will, between that. Coaching is helping people get better. And when you point something out and call me on, my BS, right? Well, yeah, I had this thing to do and this got in the way, and like, I'll BS, why, this is, what, you don't have enough time in a day? What were you doing? And I tend to be pretty good at, kind of skirting the stuff, but I know that you see right through it, and you're smiling, and, and you call me out on it. And that's what it's about. That's what this relationship is about, other than we've become, friends and so on, that you're helping me become the best version of myself.
Here's the reality. When I look at where, the stage that you came in to the organization, and you really started to like make yourself available. That's a key word, where you're actually sharing some of your struggles. And that's difficult for a lot of people. It may have been difficult for you. And I think probably after the third or fourth coaching session, I saw the vulnerability there. And I said, now is when I'm going to see the growth. Because he's going to literally let out the bats that have been sitting in that cave for a long time. But more importantly, he's going to allow energy to come in. And the implementation of the learning and the implementation of the advice and the lens by which I'm looking at basically a problem, it's going to be applied. Listen, we as human beings, we tend to be our worst critic. And I'm not sure if you give yourself an 8 I will give you an 8. I think 2 coaching sessions or 3 coaching sessions before, probably 3 coaching sessions ago, I said, there's something considerably different in you. And you said, I'm smiling again. Like I'm seeing purpose again. I'm fueled by something other than the rat race that has been a part of my life for 5, 10, X number of years. Can you talk a little bit about that, Al?
Yeah, so that's a great point that you bring up, and the word I would use that day, and I remember that conversation when you pointed it out, because it you observed it, I didn't see it, right? Because we don't always are so introspective all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at peace, right? So I had that smile, like things are going on in our world, and I was at peace knowing that, okay, I'm taking the necessary actions to address the situations, right? And yeah, so it's those days that we're smiling, that things are, even though there's stuff going on, that we're doing what we need to do, right? But what you mentioned, I think the biggest thing, and this goes back to the one-on-ones and the conversations and and so on, to kind of tie that in, is the awareness, right? So you mentioned being open and so on, and I think it's the awareness when those conversations, when you're saying something, and first, I mean, it's human nature, right? It's where you may say something and I put up a wall, right? I get defensive because you're pointing something out at me that oh, wait a minute, yeah, that is like that. It upsets me because it shouldn't be, but then it creates that awareness, and I think it's that awareness where it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, I see it, and okay, so now let's address it, right? So I think that's a big part of the process as well.
Even in my how I've evolved into who I am today, and as I continue investing in continued like evolution or becoming the best version of myself, that first, like, taking that leap of faith is painful. Not pain that you're going to recoil like it's like a hot flame, but it's scary. But I'll tell you, that's when you literally feel the change, the implementation of all the things that you're learning and being coached to kind of start to kind of set into place.
Absolutely.
I saw that. I see it. You're definitely an 8, and there's days where you're coming in at 10. So I'm honored to have been able to walk in this journey with you. I will not shy away from this comment. You are destined for greatness. You really are. I think you believe that now. I think that you've leaned into the thought of making that a priority in your life, in everything you do, not just your career. And those are the things that are really going to catapult you from where you are now, which is different from where you were when you came in, and your continued success into the future. A sincere thank you for sharing your testimony with all of the other potential clients, and we look forward to hearing more of all of the great things that you're doing for many years to come.
Yeah, and likewise, Tony. I appreciate your your time, and that you're dedicating to this, your passion, right? And going back to that statement that you made, if I may, it's if you weren't yourself vulnerable and willing to take that leap of faith, because it's genuine, right? You're not just a coach who's there just trying to make some money. You're actually passionate and interested in helping others, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because you're putting it there. I'm just mirroring it. So
my game is less about me and more about you. And I've been able to achieve that name right here, Altered State, as a result of this program that I implemented and I built myself. My plan is to help you achieve the altered state that is destined and made for you, not for me. It's different than mine, but that's what I want for you. That's the reason why it's called Altered State.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, man. Thank you.